consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou visitest him? But thou hast made him lower than the Elohim, and hast crowned him with glory and honor.
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today in our study in Proverbs. We're in chapter 18. Not used to this level because I got new headphones on because my old ones, even though I kept using them, they finally quit because one stopped working. Anyway, so let's pick it up with verse 1. A verse where I took one look at this verse this morning. I'm like, oh boy, I was like, I wanted to look it up because I was like already having a problem. I'm like, okay. Through desire, a man, having separated himself, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. A fool hath no delight in understanding, but all right, okay. The audio environment I'm in is weird for me. But that his heart may discover itself. Interesting. When the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt, and with ignominy, reproach. These are tongue twisters. The words of them, probably because they're brain twisting as far as like the sentences forced to say here. Sorry. They're just difficult sentences to speak. I've never said those sentences. I may have read this before, but I don't think I ever read it aloud. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. It is not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous in judgment. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for stokes. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. The words of a talebearer are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. He also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth to it and is safe. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and as an high wall in his own conceit. Guess we probably could pause. I'm just going to. Before destruction, the heart of man is haughty, and before honor, humility. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. The spirit of a man will sustain his infirmity, but a wounded spirit who can bear? The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge. A man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before great men. He that is the first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbor cometh and searcheth him. The lot causeth contentions to cease, and parteth between the mighty. A brother offended is harder to be won than a strong city, and their contentions are like the bars of a castle. A man's belly shall be satisfied with the fruit of his mouth. With the increase of his lips shall he be filled. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtaineth favor of the Lord. The poor useth entreaties, but the rich answereth roughly. A man that hath friends must show himself friendly. There is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother. I forgot those two were connected. I know the first one I've thought about a lot because you have to show yourself friendly. You know, it's not, like, why don't I have any friends? Well, maybe because you have puss face all the time. Maybe that's why. Like I said, I try to, when I realized people were frightened of me outwardly, so I needed to address that. So I tried to put like this, kind of a pleasant, stupid looking grin. Maybe Jesus did do that. I don't know. Maybe I'm following his path more than I realize. Maybe I'm all wrong about that. I mean, I don't think Jesus went around like this dour, sour all the time guy. But like I said, there's an appropriate time for everything. There's a time to those who weep and to laugh with those who laugh. I mean, there's just, you rejoice with those who rejoice. And that's clear. All right, let's look at this. Through desire, a man having separated himself seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. Is this talking about sort of like what someone does when they become like an aesthetic, or no, that's not, like a monk or something? You separate yourself from society. Through desire of wisdom, you sort of make it so that you have nothing else to focus on. Like Paul described, he says, "No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life." And if you're going to war, you can't do normal life. That's why they go into, they drop everything. They get uniforms and guns, and when you go to war, you don't run your business still. Someone else has to take care of that stuff, or you can't. If you do, and the thing is, well, I'll do it. It's like, well, like all multitasking, you don't do any of it really well or efficiently. That's for sure. You may do everything great, but you're slowed down in doing any one of them for sure, because you can't do both things as fast as you would do one after the other. So, certainly. Anyways, let's see what the interpretations of the modern translators have in store for us. What do they say? I say it's kind of handy. It's almost like, who needs a commentary when you can go to the NIV? This first verse, like I say, sometimes a perfect translation is not necessarily good for casual reading. So I don't despise these interpretations. An unfriendly person pursues selfish ends. I have to remind myself what we were reading because that's so different. Through desire, a man having separated himself. Okay. An unfriendly person pursues selfish ends, and against all sound judgment starts quarrel. Am I in the right chapter? Wow. Okay, I am. That's a heavy, wow. Okay, intermeddleth. Again, that word is probably the word that I'm missing out on, though. I think I'm sure they've got some, they know more about Hebrew than I do. I don't ever doubt that. But I'm always just like, wow, there's a very different translation from the King James. So let's see what the basis is. Why do they feel it's like an unfriendly person pursues selfish ends? To desire a man having separated himself. That's a kind of like I said, it may be idiomatic in Hebrew that a man separating himself. Well, that's someone who's unfriendly. Well, let's see. We gotta go. James. Through desire is a man. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't bring you right. Oh, wrong one. All right. Through desire, a man having separated himself. Seeketh is bakash, to seek intermeddleth, to expose or lay bare, gala. With all wisdom, sound, efficient wisdom, abiding success. Interesting. Gala, to expose, lay bare. So it's only used a couple times in the whole Bible, so that's a problem often. Sometimes you get words that are translated weird, and it's because there aren't a lot of examples of it to be able to contextually derive the meaning. The Proverbs, it comes also in the Latin here is throwing me off a bit. I'm like, why am I reading Latin suddenly? It must be something someone wrote about in Latin. You know, if you're a real scholar, you know Latin, you know Greek, you know Hebrew, you're just everything. I mean, that's very impressive. To disclose oneself is what they say here for the hifpael form, the perfect of this word. Make or burst out in contention and strife, they say there. Disclose oneself. I don't know. To desire, having separated, to divide. Man divided. Arad. From thence was, how often is this one used? Divided. Never, I notice, never is it like unfriendly. Translated unfriendly, like in the, I mean, I get it. I think oftentimes they want to like, well, let's tell them something that actually sounds wise. Because we can't, maybe they just can't derive the meaning. I don't know. Disperse, divide, out of joint. Ooh, is that the word for all my bones are out of joint? That's an interesting connection. Not that I'm going to, it's like, oh, well, look at there's something to that. Well, this word occurred, yeah, all my bones are out of joint. Obviously being used in a different form there, because there's actually several forms here in the Brown Driver Briggs. Verb. That obviously is a noun, up to be out of joint. Here it is having separated himself. Must be in the way it's constructed. Loss of friendship in Proverbs 19. Divided. Man divide absolute. I divided hostile from birth of people separating from parents. So that it is definitely a man separated in the sense of separated from people. And through desire, a man separates himself. That's perfectly. King James translation here is fine. It's just the meaning is obscure because when you translate from Hebrew into English, sometimes it just doesn't quite translate well. That's why you have interpretations like the NIV. Anyways, we're just going to leave it and just say, well, you know what? There's always more understanding that we can seek. A fool hath no delight in understanding. I love to understand, but that his heart may discover itself. That sounds so particularly, like I myself really inward belly button gazing type of behavior. That's something we got to guard against being too focused on yourself. A lot of times it's hard because you are yourself, and especially if everything else is focused on you, it's hard to sometimes to disassociate from that, to still remain completely I like to be unself-conscious. I like to be myself and not be conscious of myself. That's the best thing to do. As far as you go out and you do things, you make, create, you, and I don't just mean like physical. I mean with people. You in a relationship, you create moments and such. There's things in life, do and be, and your heart discovering itself. In my inward journey, there is an important. To me, it's like it's not an inward journey. My heart is desperately wicked and corrupt above all things. Who can know it? I don't want to know it. I mean, I've known enough of it to be disgusted. So, I gaze upward. Like it said about the wise, their gaze is ahead, or what was it, right in front of them, or whatever. Wisdom is in front of them. They're looking straight ahead at wisdom, at the wise path where the Lord Jesus is. It's the straight and narrow. And when we start, nothing that I'm going to find in my heart, out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, wickedness, adulteries, murders, fornications, and it's all in there. But it's just such a we can't be absorbed. It's narcissistic. That's kind of what I think it's describing, a sort of narcissism. Can't tear yourself away from the mirror. Not maybe literally. For some people, it's like that. But also in the sense of like, you're the center of the universe. Nobody else ever makes mistakes. It's always, everyone else's fault. It's never yours. What's in your heart is what really matters. That's another thing. It's like, discover itself. Another, here's another great way to look at this. This, oh my goodness, how did I not take this first? That's fine. It's going to be great. You're going to love this. It perfectly describes the way, I hate to characterize things as left or right, okay? But when people become obsessed with certain political ideas or whatever, or not political ideas so much, it's the problem is they make political decisions based on what their heart, I just want everyone to understand that I care. Don't you care about this? Don't you care about that? Oh, I care. It doesn't matter. I care about the poor, so we'll just do something. So we'll give billions of dollars to these poverty government agencies, right? And they'll take care of poverty. Actually, they institutionalize poverty. That's what they do. So they didn't solve the problem. But who cares, right? All that matters is that we show people that we care. We can show how that we feel. Our heart has to be exposed. Oh, look, I care. I'm just showing everyone how much I care. I'm such a good person. Look at all the good I do. Only caring. That's one of the things. That's how we got things like welfare and such, because people, politicians use it to show that everyone, like, look how much I care. I want to give people money and food. I mean, who doesn't want to feed people? You want people hungry in the streets? It's like, well, no, And so I can go along with some of that. But the fact is, there are consequences when you just give people things, not just to them like the moral hazard argument. I mean, just in the sense of economically, it devalues everything. And not only that, I would rather have it that we all could make decent money on for things, but part of the problem is just the whole system is so intertwined. It's like, I don't know how to fix it. Like, I was thinking about like a really tangled up garden hose, except much worse. Just a really complicated problem. It's like 1,000 tangled garden hoses, or 100 million tangled garden hoses, 100 feet long, and a big mess. But that's the thing, is like they don't care about the actual consequences of the policies that they enact, because they never have to deal with it themselves. They just want everyone to know what a good-hearted person they are. And that's just such selfishness and foolishness, because it doesn't end up really helping anybody. I said, it's great that you love people. I love people too. But the best way to love them is to do what is ultimately for their best good. And I don't just mean like, yeah, obviously the most good someone could do is to know the Lord Jesus and have salvation. Of course, that is foremost on my mind. But of course, also, it's not, as James said, you don't want to say to people, oh, be warm and filled, but then don't give them the things that are necessary for them to be warm and filled. So when we want to help people spiritually, we want to also help them. But, problem is, when the government does it, it's at the end of a gun. It also, like I said, it does things to your currency. When you just basically, we don't even we don't even have enough taxes to pay for everything we already do. Every year we collect less taxes than we spend money every. That can't. I mean, it's like, imagine if you just kept borrowing more money than you paid into your credit card. That's why they have limits, But that's what the country has done, and it continues to do. And I think the people at the top we've a generation that is so foolish that they don't understand that this is something that will eventually collapse. And but whatever. I guess they figure as long as when the merry-go-round stops, they're left holding big sacks of cash. They don't really have anything to worry about. But it's like I say, in really tough times, money, gold, silver, forget it. None of that stuff matters. And food, it's like, well, can you keep it? Hordes of food. Hordes of food are not good. That'll attract people. I'd rather have the birds bring me food from day to day. Because it's like, who can take my food? God brings it to me. I mean, that's a little fanciful thinking, I suppose, but I'm a bit fanciful like that. I do believe in the Lord's power in the worst troubles, or we die. It's like, I'm ready. I'm not this moment. I'm not excited about it, but mentally, if the world goes bad, because it's being run by fools, folks. Run by fools. And I can tell because I actually feel, by actually saying, back in the day, you'd say things like that and who cares, right? But now it's like, oh, well, they monitor you, they know what you're talking about. Oh. When the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt, and with ignominy, reproach. I'm not sure if I should pronounce it ignominy or ignominy. It doesn't matter. A bad name, right? A bad reputation is ignominy. Why am I? Ignominy is usually ignominy. I usually think there's supposed to be a T in there, right? But there isn't. So, and I suppose that because is this just commenting on how people hate the wicked? Because the wicked are not loved generally. I mean, some are, but general society, polite society, do we like the wicked? There's contempt for the wicked. And with a bad name comes reproach, No kidding. Word gets around. You think you can give yourself over to wickedness and society isn't going to notice. Society does notice. There's certain kind of wickedness that, yes, it does get passed by. There's a certain moral debauchery that the society currently celebrates. But there's plenty of wickedness that they don't celebrate. And certainly that we don't here in Carroll County. I know that. So, that it's definitely many places the wicked are not lauded and applauded and celebrated. Okay. I'm just curious. What is it? I thought it was something. No, exactly. They did. It almost translated word for word. Okay, almost exactly the same. Did they use ignominy? Shame? Well, again, shame is like a bad name. A shameful reputation. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Well, this ought to be, words of a man are as deep waters, wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. Well, can out of the same water, James, I believe it was James, right? Said, can bitter and sweet water flow out of the same fountain at the same place? Can man, then how can we praise God with the same lips that we curse men? This contradiction, it can't be so in nature, but with men, it can be so, but it's something to be remedied. Obviously, we want to have good words come out of our mouth, right? Water that are as deep waters. Deep waters are probably being described because shallow water is usually, warm, tepid. It's probably got a lot of bacteria and disgusting slime growing in there, right? And it's definitely not the kind of water, when you see a shallow pool of water, you're not thinking like, hey, let me get a sip of that. But you go someplace and you see some deep black water, and like, and, not, so not with all that growth and all that going on. Deep waters have especially when they're flowing like in a river. Also, just when you go in deep waters of a well, they're clean from down deep, right? Yeah, deep. When you dig deep for waters, I mean, we get water up from our well. It's full, delicious, so it has to be filtered because of nitrogen runoff. I guess. It's not a tremendous amount of nitrates in there, but I think that's what it is. But it's only slightly above what they consider acceptable levels. So I never hesitated to drink out of the hose outside during the summer, and I always thought it tasted better than any water I'd ever had any place. My entire experience growing up, since maybe when I was young. Yeah, I don't know how they did those. I think they had up at Woodhaven. They had water. I remember drinking out of the round pump. It was in a similar area as this. But that's what, that's the potential of words. That's of wise words. Jesus compared him, he's compared that the if you would ask him, he could give you living waters. Drink and never thirst again. In fact, live forever. Of course, that's a metaphor for when we know and trust him for the everlasting life that is salvation. I was just getting nuts, and people don't understand that living forever is salvation. And it's weird to me because so much of Christianity doesn't believe it. And that's the place where I guess I did. Well, it is living forever, but only metaphorically living forever. I mean, everyone lives forever, right? But some people die forever as a way of living forever, and other people live forever as a way of living forever. I mean, apparently. Yeah, that's why I don't believe that. That to me, that's what I'm saying. There's a problem with that. There's something very intrinsically wrong. I think they got like I said, I think they literally got the symbols backwards. They took the Rorschach test and they saw an ugly old hag instead of a beautiful young woman. I don't know what to tell you. That's exactly what I think happens in Revelation 20, and in the whole Bible. There's a people for whom I think that the idea of a literal eternal torment, like taking that as the literal truth, for whom it is, I don't know. It's like it's almost like an emblem of their allegiance to. To me, it makes me question their faith because it's like it's just the story then. And it's like, well, you can't change the story. So I'm not changing the story. I'm just studying the Bible. I don't know. I just have for a long time. It's not good to accept the person of the wicked, righteous judgment. Accept the person refers to, sometimes the wicked might be an important person. Like this is with respect of persons, that concept we talk about in the scriptures where it talks about will not have the Lord with respect of persons. Whatever. You're not supposed to apply the law with respect of persons. That's for one thing. And that's one of the big problems we have in this country is there's a totally different set of laws. Not a different set of laws. The laws are just applied differently to people who are wealthy and powerful. They generally aren't prosecuted, except unless you're on the outs, like former president who is wealthy and powerful, yes, but the full force of it is brought against him. And you see how capriciously it can be done. You see how it can just be done to you. it doesn't really matter if you've actually done anything particularly wrong. It's like, it's because you're wrong. I know. And so, when you're judging between an important person and an unimportant person, you are not supposed to weigh the importance of the person in the balance. It's funny, and it relates back to hell for me, because I remember Norman Geisler in the Evangelical Dictionary of Theology. I remember Ryan knows all about this because he had the book. That's me reading it, and what he said just really ticks me off, because he said that, when someone kills someone important, it's a more serious crime. And I've it's like and so they are worthy of greater punishment. And I was like, what? You mean, like, because I understand, like, to a country, I'm not gonna say, like, I understand that the assassination of a leader is a serious thing, because it's divorced from the individuality of that person. I mean, and I get it, because they're an important person. A lot of people know them; they're important. But it's like on another. But as far as with respect to the justice served, it should be absolutely equal, regardless of the station or wealth of the person involved. That's the point. The point is not. Yeah, I get it. There are things about people, and there's reasons why it's a bigger deal, you might say. When a leader of a country dies and when a hobo dies, it's a bigger deal. But you know what? To God, it isn't. That's the point. To God, it's all we're all the same, equally worthy of that death, but also equally unworthy of His mercy. But yet, to some, He will give it. So you can't accept in the person of the wicked in order to overthrow the righteous in judgment. There's no, and the law is even clear about that we're not to have one set of, what you don't treat, as far as when, in regard to law, you don't pervert justice when you're dealing with someone who's from another country, a foreigner. That's one of the things I really found offensive and started me on the path to really, I would say, waking up, is when I saw, the back to first, but all right. Oh yeah, accepting the person of the overthrow. Oh, this one. It's I can't remember what I was gonna say because I saw the hearts, so it's distracting. Anyways, but you should do it anyways because it increases engagement and all that stuff. I'll just have to ignore that stuff and get used to it. I should put my paper, not my paper, my text. I'm putting it right over where that is. You go ahead and do that. Anyways, it's not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous. And what was my specific? Really good example. Oh, I was talking about the law, right? And foreigners, right? And things that really upset me in the past, right? It had to do with 9/11 and afterwards, and the Patriot Act and all that stuff. When people were starting to say, like, well, you know, people who aren't American citizens don't have the same rights, and I was like, what? Those are human. The rights in the Constitution I consider to be human rights. I know that they had enslaved people when they did that, when they wrote the Constitution and all that, but that doesn't matter to me because it's like I understand the ideals and I interpret them my way. So that's what it means to me. And the rights of like due process under the law. Well, if foreigners in our country, we're going to treat them like an animal, torture them, don't give them due process of the law, no habeas corpus. We generally don't do that. Like we give the illegal immigrants all kinds of rights, right? We treat them very humanely, or not entirely. All right. But I mean, certainly they could be treated worse, right? I mean, there's an attempt to be humane. They even, I see videos of them helping them across the river and stuff. I don't quite understand. All right. I mean, but I don't, I mean, what are you going to do? Well, they could control it better, whatever. It should be. It is a humanitarian issue also. But my point is just that like people should be afforded those basic rights, those fundamental legal rights that we afford to our citizens should be afforded to anyone in our country. You're talking, those rights. You mean like, oh, you're not a citizen, no due process. That's why I never bought that. All like when someone's a terrorist, then you can just take them and torture them because they're a terrorist. It's like, well, who decided they were a terrorist? Oh, the president, or oh, the secretary of whatever. Oh, some bureaucrat. Oh, they just declared them a terrorist, and now their rights are all taken away. Oh, that's a great idea. We want to give the government that kind of power just to declare something. So I don't believe in terrorism and all that stuff. It's nonsense. It's just though they've taken terrorism is whatever. When they attacked civilian populations, civilian targets. Just understand that that's often the actions of exceedingly desperate people. But anyways, like I said, I don't think in that sense, like I said, judgment and justice should be even-handed. Someone's status as far as when it comes to I mean, obviously if someone's not allowed in the country, if it's against the law, they need to be put back where they belong or whatever. I'm not saying go, just, oh, we gotta be. I'm not saying that at all. We gotta just allow everyone to come do everything that anyone wants, because that gets to that you're not really. That's not love, because you can't do all that. You know what I mean? All you end up doing, and all we're end up doing is, we end up bringing all these people in, and our country can't handle it, and our country devolves into chaos, and then it doesn't help the people who come here. It doesn't help the people who live here. It doesn't help the people back home. That can't be. A fool's lips enter into contention. His mouth calls for strokes. Stokes. I was like, strokes makes more sense. I don't know how I didn't see that R. All for. Is a stoke kind of, now, I didn't think it when I read it. When I read it, I'm like, okay, I think that means a strike of some sort. It just got, I read it wrong, obviously. I didn't get translated. I thought, no, that's a stoat. Stoke is, stoat is. So, let's see, strokes, blows, yeah. Yeah, so, his mouth called for strokes. Come on, let's go, let's go, come on, dude, come on, hit me, come on. That's a fool. You see people who try to get into fights and stuff, they're fools. I've always avoided fighting, except for when it's been like arrangement. By arrangement, in a match setting or in a practice room where you're wrestling around according to the rules of, of fair play, because it's a game, not a actual fight, right? It's a play fight. It's all that stuff, mission grappling, wrestling. It's all play fighting because there's rules you're playing by. It's a game. It's a sport or a game. Even the ones, even the ones with the ultimate fighting, there's certain things you can't do. You can't. No, the whole smash the stones or gouge the eyes. Some of the best moves ever in fighting you can't even use. So, anyways, but but the person who goes around in life looking for fights with random people, dude, you don't know who you might run into. You can't tell by size or anything. You think you're picking on some little guy. He's got a gun. You think that big guy is a big weakling, but he's not, or whatever. He's packing heat, or he's got a knife, or he's got friends. Fool's mouth is his destruction. His lips are the snare of his soul. Well, when someone undoes themselves with their mouth, it's foolishness, right? And you get yourself into trouble in the words you say, especially when you start telling lies. The things a fool calls for, and the thing, because he's, like it says, his lips enter into contention. His mouth calls for blows. I mean, so His mouth is his destruction because he literally calls for it in that case. That's one obvious way. And there are many other ways. In the different ways, foolishness undoes us, undoes one. I mean, because, like I said, most of us from time to time, at least sometimes, have played the fool, right? Everybody plays the fool. Right? Everybody's been the fool. I said not everybody. I didn't say it. The song says it, but most everybody in one way or the other. Like I said, it's like maybe not in some ways, but we all get it some way or the other. Pretty sure that's accurate. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips the snare of his soul, right? The words of a talebearer are as wounds. Go down into the innermost parts of the belly, deep wounds. Because a belly wound, that's not good. Get deep, wounded deep. They always like right in the movies always like, oh, it's just a flesh wound, just in the muscle tissue. Not that that's not serious, but it's not into your vital organs or in your belly, where there's all kinds of things that can get messed up in there, man. You get internal cutting, you get your intestines cut open, you can die from an infection in your stomach easily. Easily. All right. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, but the words of a talebearer, again, are as wounds. But that's simile, right? They are as wounds. They go down into the innermost parts of the belly. And a talebearer, of course, is one who then takes the story to somebody, right? They're the one who tells the thing, like somebody got in a bit of a mood and they said some words or something happened, and or there's something embarrassing happened, like something embarrassing happened to somebody, and then everyone's just got to tell the tale, Oh, it's what happened to Susan and blah 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 blah. Let people's bad experiences die. I mean, maybe I recount sometimes tales of my life and things that happened, and right, I saw this guy, but this is not a wound because these people, I don't name those people generally. When the people I do name are usually teachers, and there's very specific characters, I guess, in life I've had times, but especially, but also I think the talebearer thing is about. I often thought of it as something as behind the back kind of secrecy thing. I don't think it has to be behind the back. It can be open. People often openly do this. Like we have. Makes me think of online when people bully people online. Like girls will put bad pictures of people up online. That's kind of like a form of that. When you're mocking someone and subjecting them to public shame, don't do that. I think that's terrible. If any of my kids did that, I'd be really angry with because it's cruel. And especially these days with the internet and stuff, it has this feeling of permanency, realness. And when I was a kid, when people would talk about you and make fun of you, it did. You didn't know it at the time, but it would go away. Yeah, I mean, you may not realize it, but in a few years you'd be over it and it was gone. And I mean, I remember an embarrassing situation that happened to me where I got with some girl. She and I told that story about her for years actually because she was so mean. But then whatever. She wasn't my friend either. She was mean to me. She told me to take a hike. I was whatever. I'm not gonna tell the whole story. Some girl was mean to me when I was like, right. That's about all that matters. And but when I was in high school, 6 years later, she didn't even remember that. She was like, "Why don't you? Why I get a sense you've got a problem with me." She asked me in high school because she had kind of, I had friend circles that now intersected. And I told her, well, you did that. And she was apologetic, but point is, it could die. These days, things go on the internet and kids have a real sense of the potential of the permanence. I mean, I've seen people go through online harassment where they use Photoshop and I'm sure they can do stuff with AI now to like make people put people into situations that they never were in, and it's just really terrible. And it's wicked, but take comfort in this, that the wicked will not go unpunished. They think, oh, I can do this. It's like even the world knows. Remember, we're the wicked. Even the world knows this. When the wicked come, they hate the wicked. Why they have the online registry for sex offenders. Everyone wants to know who they are, so they can know in their neighborhood, so they can keep an eye on them. We know who that guy is. It says the slothful, the waster are brothers. Don't be slothful in your work. Be diligent. It doesn't mean sometimes you feel tired. Sometimes you're sick. One time I was feeling so lazy. I thought of it as I'm like, why am I so lazy? I don't want to do anything. Oh, I'm so lazy. And I realized I'm sick. I'm sick. That's why I don't have any energy. Of course, not that I just don't want to get up. I literally don't have any energy. I went and tried to get going. And I was like, oh no, something's wrong. You can tell because your body, like, you try to go, and then the body's like, no. There's only so much the will can do. Willpower is so much. But being slothful is now, because you think like, okay, slothful is productive. But the proverb says, no, it's a great waster. Because that is, even though it is not actual destruction, in a sense, by being slothful in what you do, you destroy the potential to do whatever else you might. And I don't try to beat yourself up too much about it. We want to. The scriptures constantly exhort us to be diligent, to be productive, and so, just do it to the best of your ability, whatever it is. Whatever you do, do it with your might. The name of the Lord is a strong tower; the righteous runneth to it. So, what does that mean? I mean, we're Christians. Nobody can. I always think it's funny when people use that as a defense for when they do something really bad, and then they explain, well, I'm a Christian, as a defense. Like, if you're a Christian, why didn't you not do that? Right? I get it. Me too. But for the grace of God, there go I. I've been plenty, not the best man, but it is not a question of using God as kind of like a scapegoat, or just like, well, I believe in God, so therefore I should get away with things, or I mean, no, it's when the righteous are persecuted wrongfully, when when we need God, when we need a place of safety, when we need a strong tower, we need some place to hide out from the armies of evil. Then what is the name? Well, you call on his name. You call on his name. For us, that's the name of Jesus, Yeshua, or however you like to say it. Your language is your language. The one who we speak of, the one who is crucified, the one who rose from the dead. That's much more important than how you say his name, that you understand that. Like who he is. There's a lot of Jesuses out there, a lot of false Christs and false prophets. So when you call on the name of the Lord, you got to know who he is. But when we call on his name, what it means, it's not just that we call on his name. It's that we've always called on his name. Or like that we do. And we don't just go in because the righteous are those that fear God. The righteous are those that do right? And to them, when they call on the name of the Lord, he hears them. He responds to them. And as a Christian, you don't have to worry about being perfect, because Christ's righteousness is imputed to you. That means when you believe in him, God looks at you as being as righteous as Jesus was. Now, that doesn't mean you should take that lightly and then just say like, whoa, oh, wow, you mean I can sin as much as I want and it won't affect me? I was like, what are you talking about? Didn't you hear he died? You don't think that maybe didn't that inspire you a little bit to reform your? The point was, yes, he's paid for your sins. He's going to impute his righteousness to you, but gotta, all those who believe, like I said, show me your faith without your works. I'll show you my faith by my work. Okay, that's all I gotta say. Because those who believe do those things. I don't know anyone who believes who doesn't seek righteousness, and because Jesus said, "Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after that." I believe in Jesus. Oh, you didn't know he said that? It's like, well, you believe in him, you gotta get to know him. Otherwise, his name isn't gonna be any good to you. He doesn't go. He's gonna. You don't know who you're talking to. Jesus, you're thinking of some storybook character, not of the man that I know. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. Yeah, it's only a strong tower. And Christ the chief cornerstone. Take heed how you build thereon. And that's what I'd say. If you want strong towers don't just come out. They do come out of nowhere sometimes. God is like that. He's great like that. He just shows up when you need him most. When you got no reputation with him, even that it's not that I chose him or that I loved him. He loved me first, right? When I had nothing knowledge of God, he came to me. So, yeah. So ultimately, he is a strong tower. But this relationship, as described here, is a mature relationship. I mean, like one where we have righteousness, at least the maturity that comes with faith in Christ. At least that level. You're born again. You're safe. That is salvation. And salvation, again, like I said, it doesn't come from the works we do in Christ, or the obedience we do in Christ. Salvation is first from God's grace through faith, period. And that's where it begins. And really ends, because I'm not going to, it's like the performance aspect is a foregone conclusion. That is the way I look at it. Like, our works are not a requirement, they're a foregone conclusion. They're God's work. I'm his workmanship created in Christ Jesus unto good works. Of course I'll do good works. What are you talking about? Right? Right? That's the point. It's not a requirement for salvation, it's the results of salvation. Righteousness is the results of salvation. Good works is the results of salvation. I can see my faith because I got good works. I can even show you if I wanted to, Don't want to be sounding a trumpet like some sort of hypocrite, but let your light so shine before men. Why? Using wisdom. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and as an high wall in his own conceit. Now, that's interesting, because remember we had the thing about the rich before. Was like the rich man's strength is his riches. His riches are his strong city, right? It had the same formulation. And what was the other half? It was the poor man's, but the poor man's poverty was basically his undoing or whatever, right? Way back. I'm not going to try to find it. Well, I could use the good old Bible search. Let's see, poor poverty. I think it had poor poverty in it, so that would make an easy search. Poor poverty. Man, there's only 5 minutes left in this. I always feel like the destruction of the poor is their poverty. It was that stark. Rich man's wealth is his strong city. Thing. Not that you don't believe me. Poor poverty was a search term that you. Rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. And we commented about that. That also, like I said, happy are the poor in spirit. There is a poverty which is, which tempers things. Like I said, there is a sorrow that tempers things, that we do not become complacent, that we do not become stale, stagnant. There is, and also, start feeling entitled. When you have only good, just like when people get very rich, they begin to think highly of themselves because of the riches. It's a very predictable phenomenon, actually. It takes quite a person, I think, maintain humility while they have amassed great fortune. But here it is clear that the wicked, that the rich it's a conceit here, right? He thinks it's something very much like that high tower that the Lord is. Just like the rich man in the parable Jesus taught, where he was building bigger barns. Because he had to put all his wealth somewhere. So he built bigger barns to store it all. And then he felt good. He said, "Oh, I can finally relax. I can take my ease. I've supplied everything I need. I got everything. Ready to just toast, man." And in the night the word of the Lord comes to him, "Thou fool, tonight your soul is required of you. That which you have will be left to others." To paraphrase, right? And so wealth is not the protection that people think. Okay. Okay. Yeah, imagination. It means a show play. Let's bring it. There we go. Conceit is the Keith. Eyes are usually pronounced E. E's, A's, A. A showpiece, figure, imagination. Carved images, figured stones. Well, I wonder if that's like the chamber of his imaginations from Isaiah. Or no, wait, well, that's Ezekiel, right? Oh yeah, the chambers of his imagery. From the same as seku, a figure, carved stone. Figuratively, imagination. Like a carved, like a action figure is like an imaginary figure, imaginary man. So, yeah, he imagines it so, right? It's a high wall to protect me. I said in the end times, according to the Bible, it says people will throw their gold and silver to the moles and the bats, pray for the mountains to cover them. That's how useful your gold and silver is going to be. I say investing gold. As a long-term strategy, as part of an investment portfolio, I don't give financial advice, but that sounds reasonable to me. As a properly diverse portfolio, you have like a little gold here, a little bit there. I don't give advice. I don't have any investments. All right. I have my home I invested and my children. Those are my biggest investments. Those are my only investments. Well, and no, and of course the Lord. I have a massive treasure or I like to imagine I do. I like to imagine. But like I said, you know what I think that treasure is? It's just my relationship. I just treasure that most of all. I've grown closer to God in my life, and that when I meet Him, I should not be an utter stranger. He won't go like, "I don't know who." That's the worst thought. Not know. I hadn't. It's like, you know. And I don't mean necessarily like, "Oh God," all the time, but I mean in the sense of like obedience to His. He delights most, not so much in burnt offerings, in a lot of prayers, making many prayers, but if you do what He wants, He loves that. Loves that. When you do what He wants, the things that He cares about, the righteous things, to Him that's like Him. You might like that's why in every nation, those that fear God and do righteousness are received of Him. They're near to salvation through Christ, as in the case of Cornelius the centurion, who I always like to refer to as being a member of the Italian band. Okay, so before destruction, the heart of man is haughty, and before honor is humility. It's just, no, I know there's a lot of people who are honored in this world who are not humble. But again, the honors that fools give to each other, the honors there's honor among men, there's honor among thieves, there's honor among fools. It's like, do not covet after the honor of men that is not after the honor of God. And it's not true honor. A man who wants true honor must be honorable. We got to understand what that looks like. You know what I mean? Honor God, fear the king, or whatever. Fear the, meaning as far as you respect the law. I do. I respect the law. I always advise it. Advise it. I teach to. But lawful authority. And lawful authority needs to respect the law also. That's the thing that gets me. The degree to which, like I said, we have a two-tier justice system now. It's just really gotten out. I mean, I know it's been that way for a while. And it's like my sense that it's gotten worse is really more of my discovering how bad it actually already is. It's like I don't think, I haven't changed my tune per se about the end times. I don't, but still not in the end times, everybody. Might be heading there at rapid speed. I mean, of course, right? We're always headed there. Question is, where is it? Where is it? It is interesting, all the stuff that's going on makes it exciting and seem like, oh, wow, it could be close. There's war in Israel, right? I always hate the way people get all excited about that. And it's like, shouldn't be excited about people dying. Not good. The things in those days, they're going to be trouble, such as was not on the earth is going to go, and people on the earth are going to suffer through things such as has not been seen since the beginning of the creation, which God created, even into this time. And it's like, and I know, and a lot of Christians very flippantly just think they're not going to have none of that. And I'm sorry, very much mistaken. The tribulation that God sent is not for us, but I mean, what is tribulation to us? It rolls off our backs like water off a duck. Right? Or so we hope, right? The Lord, because like how shall 10,000 shall fall at your side, it will not come near you. The plagues of the Lord will not come near you. I can promise you that. All right? Like if you're worried about things in the end times, like plagues from God and all that stuff, that's not gonna, you don't worry about that. Only thing we gotta worry about in the end times is Satan and his folks. They'll be coming after us. That's who he's gonna make war with the saints. That's how you really know, when you notice your war is being made on you, not just because you're an American or whatever country you live in, because you're a Christian. And there is a sort of a metaphorical war, and I don't, and to that degree, I don't even know how much that war isn't just a metaphorical war to begin with, anyways. Like the weapons of our warfare are not carnal; they're mighty through God. So how can Satan make war against us? With like I said, F-16s are an ineffective weapon. I mean, technically, yeah, you can go blow a guy up, but the point is, the words he says, you can't fight them with an F-16. Technically, yeah, you can kill people, but the words go on. You know what I mean? That's why words are so powerful. Bombs blow up once. Words reverberate down through centuries, like the words of our Lord. Much more powerful than nuclear blasts. Because we can turn the whole planet around with it. The word, it's, not that I think we're about to do that, but I'm just saying the word is powerful enough. Made the world. Can unmake it. Humility ought to be, God honors the humble. That's your message. That is how, when you don't see this operating properly, when the haughty are honored, right? And instead, that's when things are upside down, and it's definitely something to be noted. It is live in dark times. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and we'll just start there tomorrow. I will comment from 13 on. That's not a bad start. Might even get the whole chapter finished. Cool too. We'll have to try to get in early tomorrow and we'll get done. Well, thanks for joining me today. We look forward to being back in tomorrow. Until then, remember, testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
When I consider thy heavens, the world